Refkin and his proposal for a nationwide MLS continues to draw some scrutiny, with industry leaders debating pros and cons. We're going to take a look at a podcast that is hosted by James Dwiggins, featuring Hillary Saunders and Guy Gal from Side, and what their take is on private listings. I'm going to break down a real estate news article about real estate executives endorsing NAR's strategy. Is it really real estate executives? Just for the hell of it, I'm going to argue with an article that was posted on LinkedIn that I think was written by AI. It's a scam alert. Oh yes, right here in Burbank, California, a man's house was sold right out from under him. What you should look out for and learn the story. It's the drowned rat edition of The Clean Clothes. The world is burning, but I'm here swimming in a sea of PDF files. Welcome back. So first, let's talk about the national MLS. So as I mentioned on our last podcast, Compass spoke at Inman and was discussing a national MLS on the main stage. There's video of parts of his conversation on Inman News, and industry leaders are responding. So my point of view, just to review it, is that it's an idea that has been floated for many, many years. I think that it could serve to standardize the data and the entry. It could lower the cost because all of us right now have to pay for multiple MLSs if we sell in multiple parts of any state or in multiple states. I think it gives us some leverage as far as negotiating, especially when it comes to things like negotiating against Zillow, for better or worse, but any kind of collective any kind of business that relies heavily on the data that we pay to create would have to come up against a nationwide MLS as opposed to all these tiny little MLSs making their own rules. So I'm kind of a fan of the idea. I understand there are nuances. I understand that we need to make sure that it was run independently. But industry leaders are making it's under scrutiny. Let's put it like that. So in this article, one of the things that's always brought up about a nationwide MLS is that a nationwide MLS could make the industry, brokerages, I guess, vulnerable to further litigation. And to me, this just looks like fear mongering, because as it currently is, that's the excuse for no change in our industry. I think I told you guys about when I spoke with NAR, talking about their delayed entry status and the clear cooperation policy in general, and how unfair it is and imbalanced it is. And they were like, well, we can't make a rule that says that, that changes that imbalance, or it could be subject to, antitrust. And it's just like the excuse for everything. But my question would be, if all of our MLS data nationwide currently, through all the little MLSs, weren't already being aggregated on nationwide portals such as Zillow, then maybe I could hear what they're saying. But that's not what's happening. Essentially, we have a de facto nationwide portal in Zillow, minus any of our complicitness in it, and they have a stated purpose in destroying agents. So I'm like, can we get some representation here? But I digress. So Bess Friedman, Brown Harris Stevens CEO, I covered her also. Just a little bit more context on what she thought was, she said, in 20 years ago, New York City real estate firms tried to create an MLS, smaller scale than a national database, but some brokerages weren't willing to share all the information. So her point is, if we create a nationwide MLS, we do need to do it with the agreement of all of the brokerages, which I think would be implicit, right? They felt this would take away from their web traffic and leads. And remember, in Manhattan, they didn't have an MLS. So all of the brokerages had websites, and people were supposed to go to the different websites to find the listings. Kind of what I think Compass is trying to reinvent with their private listings. And then it says, of course, that left the door wide open for StreetEasy to come in and become the de facto MLS. Exactly. So the problem is an assortment of different websites that then consumers would have to go to. So naturally, when you create one portal that has all that data in it, that's going to become essentially an MLS, or at least a public display of multiple different brokerages listings, just like Zillow. Nick Siegel, who is the managing broker at Carrollwood Estates, which is a local luxury LA brokerage, he added his voice. He said, brokerages in non-disclosure states might be hesitant to adjust their disclosure policies regarding sold inventory. I don't know about non-disclosure states, but I think most of us real estate professionals who actually sell real estate rely on sold data. But no matter what, with AI, we could get sold data from title companies, from the public recorder's office, right? We still could have access to that even if an agent doesn't type it in, okay? And that's something that certainly is of concern when it comes to off-market listings too. Like, how do we get those sold numbers into our databases so we can use them for comp? And then he says, the many jobs that would be potentially lost in such a move would be motivation for keeping local MLSs in place. That is to me, that is the least of our concerns. If you are employed by making our lives more difficult, challenging, or expensive, then I'm happy to see you find another place of employment. Just saying. I mean, that's, you know. He also said the value when MLSs compete with each other might be another reason that brokerages would steer away from the idea. Is there a lot of competition though? Is there? I have MLS memberships in multiple different states. I will say that the Florida MLSs are service-wise, kind of amazing. But the problem is some MLSs partner with CentralLock, some MLSs partner with SuperKey. So you have to now get additional access stuff based on whatever the MLS decides is their company they're going to partner with for lockboxes. So we still have to endure the impact of their choices. It's not our choices. These are their choices. So by having multiple different MLSs, yes, they're all running different systems, so you get to pick and choose, but that only works well, I guess, if you imagine that the agent has any control. They don't. Only the brokerage chooses the MLS that their entire brokerage belongs to. And in all honesty, between them, there's not a huge amount of difference when you think about what people actually use the MLS for. They all offer relatively the same features and tools. They all offer data entry that gets aggregated. It's only that some of them are known for being more of a policeman than others, if you know what I mean. And those are the ones that most of us want to stay away from, because who wants to be policed for doing our job? Tiffany McQuaid, who's my homegirl, love her so much. She added in here something that I totally disagree with. She says little things from like who's going to make the rules. So here's what she says. She expressed concerns about a national MLS having the capacity to police violations. I don't want the MLS to have a capacity to police. We should be able to have some agreement on our rules, and then we have to abide by the rules. And now again, with AI technology, scanning the images or whatever, they should be able to prevent images that have outlawed things from being in the photo. But what she's saying is a bad thing. She says little things from photos that have real estate signs or the agent or people in the photo. We're not permitted to have that in our market. And I think it's best to keep everything very generic in that type of formatting. Why? Why? Why can't I have my real estate sign in the picture that I paid for that's being sent out? Is it not another round of marketing for me? I mean, personally, I don't think real estate signs look good in pictures, but why not? Why can't I have my branding on the pictures? Why? Also, why can't I use some models in my photos? Like, you know, I a few years ago did a photo shoot where we hired models to show the lifestyle. You know, they signed off on a model licensing fee. I paid them. Why can't we have pictures? If they agree, is it not like advertising any other product, advertising a house? Why? If I want to have myself in the picture, an agent in the picture, why? Why can't I? If the public doesn't like it, if it doesn't help me sell the house, then I might opt to not do that. But honestly, I personally think this idea of anti-branding in the images is outdated. It's ridiculous to me. So what? So if there's a Zillow website and then it shows a picture that has an Acme sign in it, people are going to know that it's not listed by Zillow and maybe actually contact the agent who's listing it. Is that the concern? It'll complicate the branding. We could have standards, We could have our logo or our name in the corner. I'm good with that. Maybe no real estate signs to muck up the photos, but, a little Acme in the corner, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I would disagree with her on that. But she does say this. I think you see in the local boards anyway, the bigger guns that have representation, whether it's on the board of realtors in the market versus the smaller, more independent brokerage, their voice is not heard. So her concern is that if you make this like a nationwide thing, maybe some of the bigger nationwide brokerages are going to have a bigger voice. That's a concern right now, even at the local level, even at NAR level, even though NAR is technically not the MLS, we have that problem, even right now. So I don't see how that changes anything. And in fact, if it was democratized in some way, like a nationwide MLS, it's quite possible that, that the brokerage doesn't even matter, that it's the agent now who gets their independent vote, like one agent, one vote, one licensee, one vote, if it comes to changing rules and that kind of thing. Right now, as it is, the big brokerages are the ones that choose the MLSs. So right now, as it is the thing that she's most concerned about. Refkin apparently in this talk that he gave was mentioning like, oh, I think it could be kind of like Visa, So Stuart Siegel, who's the CEO of Engel and Volkers America, he said Refkin's use of Visa restructuring as an example for a national MLS is an interesting one. And then he gives this example. Visa was originally started, I think it was Bank of America, and then it went to a cooperative of banks, Siegel said. And in the late 70s through the 2000s, it had one antitrust violation or issue after another. It was seen as restrictive. It was seen as basically anti-competitive, and its structure allowed thousands of independent banks to act as a single combination of interests. Sound familiar? And it's like, yeah, but the MLS is not a bank. It's not a bank. It is a aggregator of data. It is a photo distribution site, and we all individually have to pay to have our content that we already pay for the production of to be put into this database that then gets pumped out across America to private industry who then pay a licensing fee to our MLSs for the use of the photos. But what they do beyond that, whether it's lead capture or how they structure what they sell back to the agent for the use of their own images, is kind of seemingly unregulated. Like Zillow got away with murder for the past how many years? Like they have literally built their entire business graping real estate agents for their leads, right? And charging us at the same time. That was their model. So to me, I think making a bank, which deals with, obviously people's money, and a nationwide MLS that is sort of like a maybe not mandated, but an optional thing is, not the same thing. It's not the same. I don't think MLSs compete as much as they're making the case that they do. I think the amount of MLSs we have in America is ridiculous and cumbersome and expensive. And I think it just adds to the cost of doing business, which I'm going to get to in a couple of minutes. He says also this, which I found it interesting how he frames this. The second thing is if you have a national MLS, it makes data aggregation a lot easier and less expensive. That benefits me as much as any national player, but is that really in the consumer's best interest? Like, why would you even ask that? How could it not be in the consumer's best interest? I mean, don't you want the agent who comes over to your house and tells you what they think the value of your house is to have access to accurate data? Don't we need that as part of our jobs? Do we want Compass holding some data, MLS holding some other data, Element holding its own data? Like, how does that serve the consumer? I'm very curious as to why that would be framed that way, as if data aggregation, like an accuracy, he doesn't say inaccuracy, but the fact that you could have all the data in one place and have some consistency in the rules and it would make it better for the consumer, in my opinion. Why would he think it would not? It's very interesting. It almost seems like a lot of these executives are, in a weird way, defending Zillow. Nest Seekers International founder and CEO Eddie Shapiro says this, and then I'll wrap this up. He's talking about Refkin. He says, so his war chest is massive, it's magnificent, and it's larger than, I don't know if we'll ever see that again in our history. He's proven that he's capable of doing things no one else in our industry has been able to do. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the next big move, but I do know that what is now front and center priority is the Zillow battle more than anything. So if it is an MLS and he can prove to his investors and his debt holders that'll bring more profitability to their bottom line, I'm sure he's going to get as much capital and support as he needs to achieve that goal. So I think that what's getting lost in this conversation, probably because it's true, but it's collateral damage, is that if there was a nationwide MLS that answered to individual agents and brokerages, but in my opinion, and agents, that was not necessarily tied to NAR membership, right? That somehow that would give Compass an advantage in against Zillow. And I think that could be true, but Zillow's not our friend. Zillow's not our friend. So it gives us, Compass, as much leverage against Zillow as it gives us against Zillow, except that maybe by having more agents involved in the MLS, which is something we can't control when there are mergers and acquisitions, they might have more voting power. But there is one thing about this that, definitely seems suspicious, which is there are more posts now about Compass's private listings. It's something that gets discussed in a podcast. James Dwiggins hosts the Real Estate Unfiltered podcast, which is now distributed by Inman News. You can go on to Inman and watch it. But right 20-something minutes in, we'll post a little video of it right here, they start to talk about private listings and what may be happening behind the scenes at Compass. Take a listen.
And had I not been in the industry to think about the fact that there's this private listings, to your point, marketing game going on, I wouldn't have even gone there to look at it. And then what honed in on with this, I'm going to take my own personal opinions out. As a buyer, that really sucks, because that's the whole thing we're like trying to stay away from, is having to go to 15 different company websites to see what's for sale. But then I took my buyer hat off, and I was like, these sellers are getting screwed, because here's a person looking to buy a house right now. And had I not known to go there and had a friend who worked there who gave me the link to tell me what properties were actually for sale, those sellers, who have, by the way, in the market is not moving here, they're trying to sell their homes. I just sit here and go, at what point, and here's the question, is there a point, and maybe this is more for Hillary. I mean, you're an attorney. Does this really worry you about, you said fiduciary, does this worry you about potential litigation or class action litigation for sellers that don't know what's going on here? Like, put your lawyer hat if you can for a second. Like, what is your thoughts around that?
The class action lawyers are a different breed. And if they smell blood in the water, they'll come after it. So
once it's big enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
going to wait for more damages. It's
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. All you have to do is think a fiduciary duty is literally the highest duty that the court sees. And when you're not getting your client to potentially get the highest dollar because James didn't see the listing, then you effed up.
There will be a lot of scrutiny here from a fair housing perspective. There's legislation in Washington State now with respect to that, directly targeting private exclusives in that practice. And there, of course, might be class actions, but that's probably a couple of years out, because they'll wait for more damages to build up.
Right, class is big enough.
Yeah, they'll just want more and more damages.
Yeah.
And frankly, the class won't get big very quickly, because not a lot of people are actually selling on private exclusives. It's largely not succeeded. And Compass will tell you that's because Zillow's listing ban. But I would just say it's, if I'm a seller, it's unintuitive for me to want to do what you're suggesting I do, because my most pressing concern when selling a home is top dollar and fast. I don't want to be paying 2 mortgages. I'm moving into another one. I've got contingencies or not.
Yeah.
There are practical questions that apply here that just don't really make sense logistically. We tend not to think about that. We go to like a moral argument. And then if I'm a seller putting things into private exclusives, I'm naming my price, and I'm naming it in a way that's completely untethered from what the market will bear. And if I'm a buyer in private exclusive, I'm looking to get a bargain. Like I'm shopping for deals. So I'm lowballing the offers that I'm making. So you've got people coming in very far apart with no way to actually get things done. Which is why Compass itself reports that less than 4% of those things are closing off market. They're just not. They're coming to it. What concerns me is that position agents are being put in by that company, because corporate is putting is pushing the local managers to get more things into exclusive inventory. Well, now I'm seeing specific examples of agents not disclosing to their sellers what they're doing. So they'll just have them DocuSign through all the forms without explanation and say, oh, by the way, I'm going to throw this into like this off-market exclusive thing for 2 weeks before we stage, photograph, and put on market. No big deal, nothing for you to worry or think about.
So what Guy is saying is that in addition to the fair housing potential issues, we've also got potentially some people at Compass. Now, this is allegedly, I don't know where he's getting this information from, but it sounds like they're sending off DocuSigns to people who are signing the pre-market listing package, the private listing package, and the sellers are being caught off guard by this, but these class action lawyers are just waiting for additional damages so they can hit back harder. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I have seen posts such as this one that I'm going to show you right now, which literally says Compass.com has homes that Zillow doesn't. I've seen posts like these coming out more frequently than even I did in COVID. We've got another agent in Los Angeles who just recorded a video of herself saying, I just sold a couple houses with Compass off, private exclusives. Like they seem to be making some kind of an internal push to get more listings on the private listing portal. And I think this is probably because when people started breaking down the actual numbers instead of this seller choice bullshit argument, they realized not a lot of people are actually selling off market. It's like 94% of Compass's off markets end up on the MLS. And then even so, the data suggests, I went over it last week, that they're selling for less, a little bit like 13% less than market value by one measure. So it's like, is it really working? Is it really working? Should we be putting more on here? It's like they're totally making a propaganda push. So this is David Haffenreffer, Managing Director, Compass Connecticut. At Compass, we believe in one thing above all, seller choice. And that's why Compass.com features listings you won't find on Zillow. So clearly they're trying to drive traffic to the Compass.com site. So to James Dwiggen's point in that little clip of the podcast, he's saying there's we don't have to look too far. We can look to Europe, for example, to see what it looks like when you have 1 million different websites with 1 million different brokerages having their exclusive listings, right? The work a consumer would have to do to find a house gets tedious if they're looking online. But that's what they're trying to do here. They want to drive traffic to Compass.com to say, you're going to see things here that you won't see on Zillow. Our private exclusives and coming soon strategies give sellers options. Privacy when they want it, early demand when they need it, and a thoughtful path to market that puts strategy ahead of syndication. So clearly, there's some impetus from the top telling people to push harder for private listings. And I find this ridiculous in an era of transparency, which is what we all sort of are craving right now. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm affected by the news headlines, and I'm going in. I'm going in. So I'm like, here we have our very own industry executives, our very own managing directors, our very own leaders of offices, literally promoting that there's no transparency or that they're pro lack of transparency while attacking Zillow for banning private listings, calling it a lack of transparency. I've said this before. The hypocrisy is insane. It feels like a size competition. The majority of our industry still is led by men. And I just feel like the consumer gets lost in this nonsense. Mike Delpreet, a tech strategist, He does a lot on LinkedIn. He recently posted something about a quote that inspired him, and it said, "Just because you can doesn't mean you should." And I think that's the messaging around private listings. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. It just doesn't. And I think the proof is in the pudding. This is just propaganda. That's what I think. Moving on.
Relationships matter in real estate. If you're watching this, you already know that. That's why I send my clients to Matthew Fine from Blueprint Home Loans. He is super likable. He's one of us. He is hip to what's going on in the real estate market. And honestly, he's creative. He cares about the American dream, and he helps our clients with creative solutions to getting their loan accomplished and getting them into those houses. I love that when you can count on somebody and you know when you're sending them to your client that they're not going to let them down. So if you're looking for a new lender partner and you're frustrated by the ones you've been referring your clients to, give Matthew Fine a call. He is on Instagram at MortgageMatt with 3 T's. I'll also put his contact information in the show notes. Now back to the show.
This real estate news headline says, most MLS Association execs back NAR's strategy with caveats. So according to a T360 survey, more than 8 in 10 organized real estate executives, I don't know if that means that they're not, don't have a messy desk, or just kidding, say they're aligned with NAR's 3-year strategic plan, while only 25% of respondents saw membership declines in 2025. When you look a little bit more critically at this article, you realize you're interviewing the people who are employed by the system that we already have to ask them if they feel like they should keep their job or not. So it's like, this is a interview the peanut gallery type of article, in my opinion, not cutting edge journalism, but it's interesting because we have to look beyond the headlines in these articles. This says 53% of leaders surveyed were association only executives. So only executives at the association. 28% were MLS only executives. And 19% led combined association MLS organizations. So these are literally people who will lose their job if the system changes, okay? So it says, despite NAR's messaging about the path ahead, some respondents say they're unclear on whether the trade group planned to take the lead on issues like professional conduct. I'm like, that's what you guys are focusing on right now? Do you not see that the sky is falling over here? Like that people have, if you interview, and I have been asking people, if you had to, just yesterday, I was at an inspection. I asked a guy who's at a big brokerage and he's like a team lead, been in the business for like 30 years. And I asked him, if you didn't have to belong to NAR, would you? He's like, no. Nobody says, oh yes, I definitely want to pay all 3. I get value from all 3. Nobody says that. But yet these systems are the ones that pay these people they interviewed, pay for their salaries. So then it says, heading into 2025, over 70% of organized real estate executives expected their membership totals to fall. However, only 25% of the survey's respondents said they anticipated declines this year. So I guess there's some optimism that people aren't running. Well, why aren't they running, right? So NAR comes out and says, okay, guys, you don't have to belong to NAR to have access to the MLS. So I called the MLS and I said, okay, well, if I don't belong to NAR, right, I don't want to pay NAR, how do I get the forms? How do I get the real estate forms that we all use? Oh, you have to belong to the association. And when you belong to one, like the state association, you have to belong to all. So you don't have a choice. So people aren't running because there's no choice. There's no structure yet for anyone to actually leave and still be able to do their job effectively. But I guarantee you, if the state starts taking control of the forms instead of the associations, and that's primarily what we need to do our jobs, because I'm really not leaning on them to do that much else, I'm going to go with a lot of people are going to leave. So I predict that the minute that there's an alternative that's actually legitimate and not just lip service, people will run. People will run. Now, while changes aim to reduce legal risk at the national level following years of litigation, legal concerns remain for state and local organizations. 42% identified compliance as their number one risk priority. Well, let's think about that for a second. So here's how it really works. You go online as an ordinary person and take what they call 3 college-level courses to qualify you to take the real estate exam. You take the real estate exam and then you are thrust into society with 0 training, with 0 understanding. And most agents that come through our doors and try to interview, they don't even know how to read a contract. There is nothing between the gap of nothing to fill the gap between licensing and actual practice. So how do you expect people to be compliant when they don't even have a mandate for training to get them to actually do the job they have to do post-license? It is a major missing. And another little flaw is that there's no deductive reasoning test, right? You can take a continuing education class, but it's not like you have to pass something saying, okay, I got it. I understand what it is that you're teaching me, and now I can implement that. And now that we have sales managers running offices instead of a broker on site, there's no liability. Like, not the same way as me being a broker and having an office full of agents that if they don't know what they're doing, I'm the one on the hook. There's literally no accountability. Not on a personal level, from the person running running the office. Many trainings are done via webinar. Have you tried to take a training via webinar? How did it go for you? Because I tune the F out at webinars. I start very excited to learn something, and then about 5 minutes into watching somebody moving things around on the screen, I tune out. I'm looking at my phone, I'm answering a call. It's just not an effective way to learn, especially when you're expected to have mastery of basic contract, tenets, basic things. And recently in a transaction with some guys who close $1 billion a year, they made sure to let me know how much real estate they've closed in their life, and they didn't counter a particular term. And then once we opened escrow, sent an email out to everyone saying, this is a condition of this contract. Post opening escrow, they created a new term and then demanded that it was a contingency of the contract. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I was able to resolve it because I'm a professional, but the reality is, I don't know if he knew or even read the form to know that what he was doing was not contractual, that there's actually a line on the contract which clearly states how to handle earnest money deposit, for example. So, even the people who are at the top of our industry are not compliant, so to speak. And there's no accountability for the gap between the licensing and the practice, which I think is the thing that exposes us to lawsuits and to stupid AI written articles on LinkedIn, like the one I'm going to get to in a second. Oh, real estate news. How about you interview some agents and let them talk about this? Because interviewing the people whose jobs depend on the existing structure is only going to get you one side of the story. And even that side is having doubts, looks like to me. Moving on. Just for the hell of it, I'm going to bring to your attention a LinkedIn article written by a guy named Ryan Elliott. He has a website called Buy Assist, 2, Sell, classy. His article that I think was written by AI is called NAR and the MLS didn't just organize listings, it organized commissions. Let's break it down. I have to do this because this is the bullshit that people are reading, and if they actually believe this is real, then we're not doing our jobs. We're not. We need to be aware that this stuff is out there and speak on it, okay? So this guy, on February 16th, posts this. I don't know where else he posted it. Okay, and it's clearly written by AI. It's the way it's formatted, like you just know. It says, and they're high because the industry is designed to keep them that way. So real estate commissions didn't stay high by accident. They stayed high because the real estate establishment, National Association of Realtors, the MLS, large brokerages, and their agent networks engineered a system where price competition is discouraged, efficiency is captured internally, and consumers are trained not to question the bill. That's not innovation, that's insulation. So that's his premise. Then it has the headline, the lie at the center of the industry. The industry wants homeowners to believe this is just what it costs. Quotes. No, they don't. No one ever says that. I have never heard someone say, this is just what it costs. That's not it. Every single listing I take, every single listing that I take, there is a conversation around commission about what I pay for, what I'm doing to promote, how I value my time and service, and then the seller can take it or not. Just recently, even though I'm 21 years in the business, I consider myself a pro. I went on a listing presentation for a house that I think I could have sold very, very well, very, very well. And the sellers, who were not going to make a ton of profit on it because they only recently purchased it, asked me if I could reduce my commission. And I respectfully said, listen, you have many options. There are many different types of agents in this field. They didn't go with the people they had previously tried to list with because they didn't like the service they got. They chose some West Side agent who didn't want to drive to the East Side to open the house up. The agent didn't meet the photographer. Many things the agent did not do. They had no idea how many people were coming through the open houses, didn't even generate one offer, okay? So I was like, we can fix this. I've got you. And even though the platform, the marketing presentation, the amount of money I was going to spend on their listing far exceeded my competition, I am sure, they still wanted me to discount. And I said no. And so they went with someone else. That right has always been there. Commission has always been negotiable. And I refuse, just because of the Sitz or Burnett bullshit trial, to sit here and actually admit on any level that it's not. Now, are there prices that some people will work for, that some people will not work for? Yes. There are levels to this. There are levels to experience. There are levels to, what people need in order to make an actual living, right? Because we want people to make a living, right? This is just what it costs. Nobody says that, so that's bullshit. Okay, he says that statement collapses under even minimal scrutiny. Let's talk about reality. Okay, let's talk about reality, Ryan. I'm going to tag you in this podcast. Okay. Home prices have skyrocketed over the last decade because commissions are charged as a percentage of the sales price. Commission checks exploded right along with them. Yet the actual work required to sell a home has never been easier, faster, or cheaper. Okay. Let's talk about home prices. Historically, 84 out of the last 86 years in American history, home prices have gone up. However, when the government decides to print money and then make interest rates 2% in one of the greatest wealth transfers in human history, you can imagine that people will see increases in their property's purchase price, which is exactly what happened. Home prices went up because people had more money and the money was cheaper. And so all of a sudden, people were qualified for more money and could spend more money, and the competition was there. So prices went up. And when they increase the interest rate, it does affect the price of housing, right? The people who bought at a high price can't sell. They have to sell in a better or at least same market. So they have to wait until the market continues to slowly appreciate as it's doing right now, and they can sell for a profit. But the idea that the actual work required to sell a home has never been easier, faster, or cheaper is a joke. What a lie. Absolutely ridiculous. The cost of tech subscriptions has gone up. The cost of photos and video has gone up. The amount of promotion an agent is expected to do is beyond just posting something in a newspaper. Now we're talking about influencer campaigns. We have to do Google boosts, Facebook boosts, Instagram boosts. We have to do virtual tours personally and paid for. We have to do printed material. We have to do all the things. And the cost of those things is not cheap. We still send postcards, my friend. So it says, so why are homeowners paying more than ever? More than ever? Actually, I don't know about some other people, but my fees haven't gone up because the industry didn't just fail to pass savings along, it actively prevented them from showing up. So what he's saying is that because technology, okay, replaced fax machines, so now we have to use our phone to do a scan, like a turbo scan, right? Fax machines are replaced, so that's cheaper. Well, the cost of a fax wasn't that expensive anyway, right? It was on a landline. So I don't know that was really, how were we using faxes back in the day? We were using them to scan contracts. That's it. Photocopiers, still needed sometimes. We don't use them as much, but we still have to print stuff, as you can see. Physical contract delivery. So there's email. Now. So they're like, he's like, oh, these things are not the biggest cost of our sales. These are not the things that are the cost. You know what's the cost? Houses taking 60 days or 90 days on market every single Sunday, hosting open houses, paying for the sign delivery, paying for the brochures, paying for the time that we spend to actually promote the property and to sell the property. It's like tripled. When the market turns down, there's nothing easy about it. And by the way, when the market's up, things go under contract faster, but the work is still there. We still have to make sure that we're doing our job, which I'm not mad at doing our job, but the idea that because we're emailing things instead of faxing things is actually so much a savings for the seller that now my commission that I get paid to sell houses is grossly inflated is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. What once required cars. Okay, so are you telling me in LA to get to my open house I don't need a car? Are you telling me I don't drive to the home inspection? Are you telling me that? Because this is crazy. Oh, we don't need offices? Well, we have to have offices, and most of us do. Some brokerages have gone virtual, but they're not the biggest ones. Brick and mortar is still extremely important. You need to have a community presence. Staff, yeah, still have staff. Staff are existing. Ask any agent, they have staff. Paper, still paper, still a thing. Time is the thing we don't have. We're expected to be on demand at all hours, like a doctor. I literally have to tell people when I'm signing off or my phone will continue to ring till 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night. Setting boundaries is a challenge for most agents. People think that we should work when they're working and when they're not working, and most of us actually do. If you ask anybody who is either married to a real estate agent or has a real estate agent as a mother, how much time is required in coordinating all these moving pieces and having these conversations with unhappy buyers and sellers or people who are stressed out about divorces or whatever, you would take that back. Then it says technology replaced newspaper ads. Well, yeah, it replaced it with online ads. Okay, magazine spreads. Nope, still printing our brochures. TV and radio spots. Yeah, because nobody watches TV and radio anymore. But there are a lot of people who are paying to advertise on YouTube and on online platforms. Costly direct mail. Still do the direct mail. Still have to do postcards. So a lot of that has gone up. I mean, postage has gone up. Printing has gone up. Okay. Listings now receive global distribution instantly through online portals, search engines, and social platforms, often at zero marginal cost to the agent. No, not zero marginal cost, because I'm paying for the photos. And then I'm paying for the MLS membership, which is a hefty fee. I'm paying for association membership to be able to access my MLS membership, or at the very least to get the forms to do the job. And then at the end of the day, are we calculating the cost of these online search portals stealing our leads and selling them back to us? Is that part of it? Or the fact that our very own industry, and I love you, Tiffany, but this is wrong, tries to mask or neutralize our branding and our own marketing so consumers don't know who the actual listing is and get duped by online little click here to tour the home, Redfin, Zillow, whatever. Can we count that in? Then it says, why? Because the system was built to profit from efficiency, not share it. Nope. Because there's a skill set in real estate that you're not calculating in your fee. So if all our job was simply to put something into a computer and get it out, then you would maybe be right, maybe. But there are actually humans involved. And humans need phone conversations. There are hurdles to jump. You have to work with escrow and title. You have to have a network of home inspectors. You have to be able to negotiate repairs, understand construction concepts, design, inherent and intrinsic value in homes. You have to understand neighborhoods. You have to understand so much more than some simple guy using ChatGPT to write this article against our industry would ever even imagine. I'd like to interview him. You know what, Ryan Elliott? This is an open invitation. If you'd like to come on the Clean Clothes and defend this piece of crap article that you wrote, I would love to have you. Let's have it out. I'm honestly serious. Come on. He says, the MLS is not a neutral marketplace. It's marketed as cooperation among competitors. Now we know, because of this type of narrative, the Sitzer-Burnett hearing made cooperation, pre-negotiated compensation, not the purpose of the MLS. So now we cannot offer cooperation, if you even know what that means when you wrote this, and ensuring professional standards. Yes, there are rules that we all have to abide by, which change MLS to MLS. In practice, it functions as a price stability infrastructure. How? How does it do that? When was it pressing prices whenever the interest rates were 2% and people were going crazy? It provides sold data. He says, in practice, it functions as a price stability infrastructure when everyone sees the same listings. Well, just a couple paragraphs before, he was saying that, the portals aggregate and, those same portals that are seeing all the same listings, because a lot of people in the industry actually believe in transparency and that all buyers should have access to all listings. So what's your recommendation here? A nationwide MLS, perhaps? Then he says, everyone follows the same compensation norms. Not true, as I just proved by the fact that I went on the listing presentation. They tried to negotiate my fee. That's not a fee I work for. And bada bing, bada boom, we don't have a deal. They chose someone who would do it for the price they wanted to pay. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And I don't know why people continue to pretend like there's ever been a norm. You know where I see the number, like when they talk about the number, they always say a number. It comes up in television shows. It's a television show thing. But I have now worked in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, Florida, and California. I've been licensed in all 5 states. I've sold real estate in all 5 states. And I can honestly tell you, not in one of those states have I ever seen that number be a mandate or a rule at all. Never. Anyway, everyone is told this is standard. So I don't know what he's talking about here. That doesn't even make sense. Everyone's told this is standard. No, it's not standard. It's not a standard thing. It's that we have a portal that we belong to, that's based in an old system, that's locally managed, that we're required to belong to in order to get access to our super keys and, whatever. And that portal is what aggregates onto the sites that sellers want to see their listing on and buyers look for listings on. That is it. It's not rocket science, my friend. Then he says this. Okay, the MLS didn't just organize listings, it organized expectations. This is how you know it's written by ChatGPT or something. The NAR exists to protect the model, not the consumer. The National Association of Realtors presents itself as a consumer advocate. Really? Is that what it's doing? Because it's the National Association of Realtors. It's supposed to be our advocacy group. Yeah, us. Yeah, the real estate agents. We were just talking about this on a different podcast episode, how failed they are at actually serving the concerns of the real estate agents because they're so wrapped up. Remember when I think it was the CEO or something made this open letter, like real estate agents need to remember who they serve. And then I said, NAR, you need to remember who you serve. You serve us. We're the ones who pay the fee for you. Yeah. I don't think they're a consumer advocate. They're supposed to be our advocate. I'm not sure who they advocate for anymore. Anyway, but it says its real function has always been to defend their members' commissions. Where? Prove it. Normalize high fees. Where? What do you call high? The price I value my time and experience and am charging my client? Why do you, Ryan Elliott, or whatever your name is, get to decide what is high? like as a rule. Where do they get these guys? I honestly, I just know I'm arguing with a robot, so I need to settle down. Marginalized alternative pricing. We are bound by what is called the law, and then we are doubly bound by NAR rules if we're members of NAR, which the majority of licensees are. So these are the rules that we have to play by, and these are the rules we play by. We don't marginalize alternative pricing. Many people take advantage of alternative pricing. There are discount commission models. There are lawyers out here claiming that they can do the job of an agent for cheaper, right? There are people out here in the field doing the damn thing. So what are you talking about? It says flat fee models, rebates, tiered services. They're framed as discount, limited, or risky, not because they don't work, but because they threaten the revenue structure. No, because you get what you pay for. Because there are certain agents who would never do the amount of marketing and the type of promotion for a discounted fee. And then there are some agents who literally put something in the MLS, do an MLS printout as your brochure, don't show up to the open houses, set up a table, let some lender host the open house for it. I've been to these open houses. You get what you pay for. When is that not true? Is that not true in every industry? Like there's a cheap, crappy car, or there's like a luxury car, right? And based on what you can afford, you get to choose what's important to you and what you're willing to spend. Discount brokerages don't work. I started one. I know it's true. It doesn't work for people who expect concierge service. Why? Because people pay for service. This is not an a la carte industry. I don't hand an invoice over that has an itemized list of all the fees and all the money and time I've spent on each listing. Discount brokerages are discount and make a profit the way hamburgers at McDonald's, people eat them, and somehow, even at their cheap, cheap price, McDonald's is making a profit, right? So is that what you want our real estate industry to become? Because if you're suggesting these don't exist, you're wrong, they do. But people aren't choosing them because they don't work. They don't work as well. Brokers and agents are paid more for not competing on price. How does that work? Oh, are you saying because our commission is tied to a sales price that we're incentivized? Agents don't compete on fees because the system punishes those who do. Lower fee models are treated as inferior. They're treated as inferior because they are inferior. Price competition is labeled unprofessional. That's not true. Don't know where you got that. Prove it. Consumers are warned they'll leave money on the table. They will. They will. Because anybody who's willing to work for a cheap, cheap fee is probably not great at negotiating. If you need surgery, are you hiring a low-price surgeon as if selling a home is even remotely the same as getting surgery? You know what? I think it actually is. Anytime you have a valuable asset, you want a professional. I always give the Lamborghini example. If you have a Lamborghini, you're not going to take it to Joe's repair clinic down the road. You're going to take it to a place that specializes in Lamborghinis because that's a valuable asset. And you want somebody who has a track record, who has great reviews, who knows how to deal with Lamborghinis. So yeah, it is the same. I mean, he's saying this as if money doesn't matter, as if, so what? A discount broker might not get you the same price. Who cares? At least you paid less in commission. What a crappy argument. Then he says, fear replaces math, tradition replaces logic, and the high fees and percentages stay intact. With so many agents competing for business and over 71% not selling a single home, how have commissions remained so high? And it's because when the market turns down, the agents that continue to sell are the ones who have proven track records, who do a great job, and who are, who have managed their relationships with their clients. So people will take less risk, right? The cream rises to the top. Plus, we're talking about licensees that are at varying levels of professionalism, of competence, who are at varying levels of deductive reasoning skills. I love our industry, but there is a gap. There is a gap. And so it's the people who have no business, and honestly kind of have no business being real estate agents, that don't get that overflow business when the market turns down like it has done in the past 3 years. So these are according to NAR. This NAR agent count as of November 2025, 1.3 million, said that 71%, according to this chart that he puts in here, which I've heard is not real, but whatever, for the sake of this robot, we're going to argue it. 0 deals per agent, 71%. The cream rises to the top, okay? And it is always the case when the market turns that people leave the industry because they have to make a living and they need to earn money in order to buy $20, a $20 burger every now and again, right? So our prices are going up for things. What do you think people are going to do? Sit around and be broke? No, I mean, they're going to get a job that pays them. A percentage-based fee does something brilliant for the establishment. It disconnects the price from cost. No, it allows the seller to pay on performance. So we only get paid when the house closes. The seller has a right to accept or reject any offer. So if the seller doesn't like the offer that was received, the seller doesn't have to pay the agent. That's the way it works. Can you think of something better? Do you want us to be paid on an hourly model? Then it says, but the commission is no added service. So he's saying selling a $600,000 home is not 3 times harder than selling a $200,000 home. How do you know, Ryan? How do you know? Do you sell real estate like that? I dare you to come out here and try and sell a $10 million home compared to a $200,000 home. And I want you to tell me how hard it is to reach the buyer, how much more expensive the photos are going to need to be, how many more different outlets you're going to need to advertise in, how many more private showings you're going to have to do because you're probably not hosting open houses, how much more time you're going to spend doing your job, pitching it, reaching out to agents directly. No added service? Baloney. No added risk? Really? As a broker, I can tell you that the price of a house directly correlates with the cost of any kind of perceived injury. So on a $10 million house, it's quite easy to do $1 million worth of damage, right? You imagine the finishes are more expensive, foundations are bigger, roofs are bigger, people have more expensive attorneys. So I would argue that there is added risk at a higher price. No added labor. Well, I think I already spoke on that, but yeah, the more expensive a house is, the fewer buyers can afford it. So like a pyramid, the actual work needed to sell a more expensive house goes up the fewer buyers there are. You can't just put a for sale sign in a yard and expect that you're going to get a flood of buyers like you can when you grossly underprice something. So I argue that does not pass muster. Why consumers don't revolt yet, finally? Because the industry has designed the payment to be invisible. Commissions are paid at closing. We already talked about this. Rolled into proceeds, and it's framed as coming out of equity. Those all 3 things clearly created by ChatGPT. It couldn't come up with any new ideas, so it bundled them all. It bundled them all together. All of them don't make sense because it's pay on performance. Most people prefer to pay when the job is done. Like I like to pay my contractors now that I've learned my lesson when the job is done, not before. Says the industry's greatest fear isn't regulation, it's transparency and true free markets. Transparency is not my fear. It might be Zillow's marketing agenda and Compass's supposed propaganda campaign. I don't know. But it's certainly not my fear. I think most agents love the idea of transparency. We are with it. Forget lawsuits, forget rule changes. The real strat is consumers understand the math. So again, his whole entire argument here, his AI robots, is that costs went down, productivity went up, and fees rose anyway. So I don't know where he's getting any of this data from. The fees in my world have not risen. I don't think nationally there's any evidence to support that. Productivity went up. No, different tools are being used, but we still have to have a human running the tools, and there's a cost for those tools. So we just transferred the fax machine cost to the Real Scout app. That's it. And then costs went down. I disagree. I think things are costing more to sell and taking longer than they have in recent years. So this is what the fight is about. It's about protecting a pricing model that no longer reflects reality. Okay, I disagree. And I invite you again, Ryan Elliott, to come on this show and defend your position, because he says every industry that ignores its own efficiencies, does he mean inefficiencies, eventually loses control of pricing. And I just think that this whole entire argument written by this robot ignores human value. Is that so surprising when something's written by an AI robot, that it ignores human value? The sad thing is that I think the fact that our very own industry representatives would push this kind of nonsense, and now I guess I'm going to be arguing with robots instead of real estate agents. Is that the future that we're looking for? Dude, go back to the drawing board. If you want to create a discount brokerage, just create a discount brokerage and tell people why that works. But to completely make your case using a robot to argue that human value isn't relevant just doesn't pass the snip test, my friend. So finally, a scam. I'm doing scams this whole year probably. So I have more scam stories to come, but this one just hit the news. The DOJ, okay, has apparently not had enough time to deal with its larger PDF files, but it did have the time to arrest a few defendants who are allegedly fraudulently buying and selling real estate using false identities and con escrow companies. So here is the story from the DOJ, and then I'm going to play you a little clip from KTLA. A licensed real estate broker and 2 other defendants were arrested today on a federal criminal complaint alleging they fraudulently stole a $1.5 million Burbank house whose owner had his house sold out from under him by using stolen identities of the victim and the homeowner, of that victim homeowner, and that of a purported buyer to obtain an almost $1 million loan. So the defendants are Glennis Cardona, 63, of Highland, a licensed real estate broker who operates an escrow company. So that escrow company is the one that closed the deal and wired the proceeds to these other co-conspirators. Ivan Reyes, 50, of Van Nuys, and Arshak Akopian, 46, a.k.a. John Akopian of Northridge. There's one guy on the run, Basil Tacridi, 54, of Marina Del Rey, who's at large. Okay, so the defendants in late 2023 and January 2024 executed a fraudulent sale of the home, got $975,000 in loan proceeds. They used stolen identities of the homeowner, which is public record, so you can find somebody's name. They created fake documents, fake bank statements, fake ID cards. They had fake notarized signatures. The company is called Golden Escrow, which has offices in Downey and Sherman Oaks. They prepared fraudulent documents, including false identity cards, a purchase agreement, a grant deed, a deed of trust, and loan applications, and then falsely notarized the deeds. The real estate agent involved in this purported to represent the victim seller and victim buyer, right? Dual agency, even though neither authorized the transaction and controlled the escrow. He used the victim's stolen identities to impersonate the victim seller and victim buyer. So he created a false identity for both. So it was the same guy playing buyer and seller. Then Reyes and Akopian acted as mortgage brokers and submitted fraudulent loan applications to solicit lenders to fund the transaction. After the victim lenders deposited the funds in escrow, Cardona directed the funds to various third-party entities so the schemers could collect their loan funds. So thankfully, this guy got his house back, but it's just a reminder that we should all be signing up for Title Watch. You want to make sure that you have some kind of credit monitoring system. There are a few suggestions that are in this KTLA segment, so I'm going to play it now.
This local home was sold for over $1 million, but the homeowner was not aware. He found out the hard way.
A rising real estate fraud scheme.
3 people, including a realtor, have been arrested.
You can imagine just how shocking this was for that homeowner to learn that he no longer had the title of this property here in Burbank. He also told police he never authorized the sale of this home. According to federal investigators, paperwork was filed, a loan was funded, and ownership was transferred, all without his knowledge or consent. Prosecutors say once the loan was funded, escrow money was wired to a third party party instead of the rightful homeowner. He was able to retain ownership of this property after hiring an attorney, but legal experts say cases like this, they highlight the importance of monitoring your property records online, which you can do there, signing up for county title alert services, and confirming any unusual loan or title activity immediately with your lender and local authorities. Back out here live, we can tell you that if convicted, each of these defendants face up to 30 years in federal prison.
Some of the other news articles I was considering reviewing this week are talking about like a lot about AI and whether or not it's going to actually diminish the cognitive ability of agents and that kind of thing. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think the biggest thing that AI has done is had us questioning whether or not what we're seeing is real. And then whenever you see in the news things that are so real and so upsetting that it's almost so traumatizing, we don't know what exactly to do. We trust that our leaders will know what to do because they're the ones that hold investigative power. They're the ones that hold the judicial power and the ability to actually prosecute people who hurt us. Real estate is no different than any other institution that we have faith in and believe in and submit our lives to in the service of helping people find home, like establish place. It's like scientific that human beings who have community and home are healthier, mentally healthier, emotionally healthier, physically healthier. But we have right now an assault on everything that we have trusted, that we believe is true and good. And, I personally feel like in all of that, as traumatized as we are by the things that are coming out in the news, we need to remember that we do have a voice and we need to hold people accountable. These things cannot be swept under the rug. So even as I'm doing this real estate podcast, because real estate's really important to me, I'm not blind to the fact that there are way bigger things going on right now that we should all be very, very concerned about and very vocal about. So I hope you go out and reach out to your represented officials and let them know how you feel about the DOJ prosecuting the Burbank fraudsters and missing some of the bigger stories. See you next time on The Clean Clothes. Toodles.